Available? Not sold in stores? Nor on the internet? They can be found on the porches of abandoned homes in Maine, Rhode Island, Birmingham, and Maryland. However, most have been taken up by conspiracy theorists, who have given the info needed to complete this article. TSopua is a television set created by a now defunct company, Terra Soundwaves. The initials were found sloppily engraved on the back of the set, possibly by a child from the ages of 5 through 7. The set was not popular during the 2 years it was sold, as over 2,000 refunds have been noted. All people who have refunded the television have claimed to have the same set mailed back to them, in a large, sloppily closed box. Terra Soundwaves was largely uncredited for doing a large amount of work during the 1969-1982, mostly on low-budget movies that are presumed lost. Most famous ones named One Night More, 1975. The films, the one that exists now, are not available on any DVD or any streaming site, as the quality somehow grows worse. The audio is much better than most films available in that time period, and strongly sounds like HD audio that wasn't used until the 2000s. The television set has little to no channels, depending on location. Most channels that were available were 21, not counting the 74 blank channels. All those blank channels were reported to play some sort of indistinguishable audio, which only could be described as high-pitched whispering. It's not clear where the signals are coming from or why they played long after the television set and company were gone. Of the known shows, here are the ones. Man of Fire. Oddly, the only show that was available on the internet during 2009-2013, based on reports the show was about some sort of superhero made of fire, and the quality suggests that it was created in the early 50s. The last episode is not available, besides one VHS that has been recorded over. Based on the contents that were left on the VHS, the episode is much more violent than the others. Now, the second one is How to Please Your Family with Gaeo Diani. As stated in the title, it is a man teaching husbands and wives how to keep your family happy. If found, tips are not recommended to be used. Only episode is named Cheatin' Ain't a Crime and contains Gaeo speaking out against husbands and wives who divorce each other over adultery. The final line of the episode is, as long as the other doesn't know about it, I say cheatin' ain't a crime. The star of the show is arrested for a bank robbery in 1981. The third show is TSopua Show. No subject, it was mainly just a public access show consisting of audio tests during the show. One person had actually gone deaf due to the tests and had sued the company. This may be the reason the company went bankrupt. The next show is Man Spider. Unrelated to the comics, though it shares the same basic storylines with changes to the main character, the animation is primitive, and some claim to even hear pornography play in the background. Judging by the quality, the show could have been made from the 60s all the way up to the mid-70s. Now, the next show was The Show. Just The Show. It was discovered in 2008 during a test recording made in 1993, found in the basement of Jaith, Orlando. The show is about stuffed animals who put on different shows. Clearly made by a child, entirely by a child who is credited as retarded kid who plays with stuffed toys. This may suggest the kid has some sort of mental problems, and or the evidence that the people who ran the program clearly mistreated the child. Now here's some reports from 1986 all the way up to 2003. The first report comes from Mike Journay. Clearly wasn't happy to be there. He claimed that during the 24 hours he was forced to watch it, he had to cover his ears every 5 hours when the loud audio show would come on. Before going back home, Mike told me that there was a show about Spider-Man. We'll check on this. Marty Smith, who's a teen, willingly performed the test. Final test for the day, he was more afraid than Mike. We had security cameras on him. Unlike Mike, he started pretty normal. Then, when a yet unknown show came on, he began doubting his willingness to do this. As much as it hurt me, I did not let him go, despite the fact that he was asking us through the walkie-talkie. He nearly lost his hearing ability due to the loud audio show. At the 12-hour mark, he started crying. At another show we don't know about, finally a show that had a soundtrack that sounded like the Spider-Man cartoon started playing, possibly the show named by Mike. and his head hurt too much to cooperate. We had to let him go at the 14-hour mark. Peter, why? We told this person to stay off the channel with the loud audio show, known as the TSopua show. We had to kidnap. He wasn't cooperative. Mike, retarded kid who plays with stuffed toy, he didn't mind this one much, but then he accidentally flipped to the TSopua show channel, and the cur showed his ear bleeding rapidly. Rushed to the nearest hospital. However, we did not want the police to. We had to leave him on his mother's front porch, who we hope rushed him to the hospital. Sorry, Pete. The tests shown here were not ran by us. They were ran by a group of idiotic teenagers, not yet known their identities. The first one was E&M. I was sold this computer by my friend, Frederick. They had all these videos on it with these prehistoric shows on it. I'm willing to sell you these videos considering you've been trying hard to obtain that TV. I at least presume these are where they came from. Who am I? A friend. R.A. writes, do not share these. The download link is given, but it is now defunct. Cora Opala writes, yo, what the fuck is this shit, man? Some weird old TV station? LOL. People have attempted to find the TV set on the streets of the reported areas. Ian and R.A. both found the sets on the porches of abandoned houses. Cora's short comment is merely a comment on the download link. Now, the Terra Soundwave CEO. Despite the fact that this individual is dead, we found a once-lost interview from him, from 1974, advertising the set in one part. One time I just decided that making sound wasn't good enough for my company, so we decided to go into the next step, creating a personal TV for the whole family, combined with our amazing audio system. Yes, maybe it'll be as unpopular as our movies at first, but then it might become popular with one popular person, who will tell his popular friends, and they'll pass it on to theirs, and then the whole state will know. Then the whole world will know. We've even got a few personal shows made for it. We're still working on the audio issues, so there might be a channel where we test our audio, but there'll be so many channels on it that it'll be unfindable. So look out for my company's new television set in the summer of 1975. One audio leak has been passed around the internet from Christmas of '74, where the CEO is heard yelling and screaming at his workers. Supposedly it was originally from a security tape, which was also recorded with the audio. It wasn't very interesting until a gun cocking sound is heard very clearly, and gunshots and screaming is heard for 2:43 until the audio cuts out. He somehow kept the secret. If not for the fact it leaked in 2012, a year after his death, his arrest would have been quick. The CEO's name is still unknown, and the only thing that was confirmed is his death date. June 3rd, 2011. He reportedly shot his son in the stomach during a period of drug use and paranoia, and at a brawl with the police. All remaining sets do not work, as all signals have been cut. Well, this was something. Something similar to a certain creepypasta known as 1999, and something that tried way too hard to become what that was. Now, for starters, 1999 was great because it was very local. It was centered around a location in Canada that I do live in, and that's where it was. It never went national, it never went international, and it never focused on anything involving interviews and lots of investigations everywhere. It was just local footage being recorded by some sicko in their basement, sending it out locally to TV sets in local areas, using very primitive methods. Here you have a creepypasta which focuses on an entire company, TSopua, or that's the best way I can go around pronouncing it, creating a television set, sending actual data, customized programming on an international level scale. Well, not international, sorry, national, but to the point where it's going for multiple states at a time, most of them located on the eastern seaboard. And that is the really weird side of the entire creepypasta. Now, for me, a creepypasta has to have some level of believability, and I've said this since the beginning. This could have been great if it did not focus on making this a big deal. For example, there's a ton of investigation that goes into it. Well, if something like this did exist, TSopua, the company, how the company treated its employees even, fucking shooting them, and if the TV like this existed, it would be pretty big fucking news. Now, of course, some people say, well, this takes place in the alternate time. Well, no, it's an internet creepy campfire tale. And especially when you focus on the theory side of creepypastas, they have to be based on something real, something tangible, something that I can look up 5 seconds after reading, and if I find some resemblance of believability, yeah, then it all clicks in. If TSopua had been a real company that I googled up and actually saw a full name, some backing up of what they did, something relative to it, being sound engineers that they are, and not getting any further information out of that, maybe I might think to myself, you know, they made a TV. Is this real? Is this not? That would have really added to the whole flair of this. But if we do look at this as its own thing, I'm not going to be a hypocrite because I've given some creepypastas the pass, some not. We have to look at this on, I guess, its own merit. Let's say a company like TSopua existed. Let's say they created a television set that just, you know, primarily exists in a few hotspots in the US, so to speak. Well, them creating 28 channels, all of them incredibly low quality, it seems, with how the show described it, in the 70s and 80s, it kind of adds up and makes a little bit of sense in that point, because back then, maybe in these areas, given that this technology came out in a flash, many users, and say for example these TVs were cheap, had they come out, many people may not have had the method to really capture and archive the footage for later research. I mean, sure, it might have been weird, sure, it might have come on. I've seen some weird stuff on, you know, obscure television channels here and there. We used to have digital television with God knows how many channels on there, and some of them had some questionable material or material that I didn't understand. And that was back, you know, in the early 2000s, and even then, many people just did not record what was on there. You know, at the time, at least when I was growing up, there wasn't a whole lot of instantaneous capture methods. Nowadays, you can pretty much TiVo anything. Back then would require you setting up a VCR or something of the sort with actual scheduled timing on it that it would record whatever would be on your TV display. That's how I would really go about, you know, seeing any kind of archival going on. And if you were taking this all the way back into the 70s and even the 60s as this creepypasta was, it's definitely interesting to see, you know, how this one, how this carries itself, how this sort of becomes a little more believable, and how many things were not kept. But the whole idea of there's investigations going on, there's a test audio channel that will drive people insane is a little too far-fetched. And ultimately, I'm not going to say this is a bad creepypasta because it does deliver an uneasy, eerie feeling. You know, to think that a channel like this, or an entire network of channels can exist like this, that are exclusively accessed via crappy televisions that are made with really, really bad etchings and just that in general. That is an interesting concept, and I'm sure there is weird technology like that exists from defunct companies that were, hell, verging on the status of being defunct even back then when they were just releasing these products. It happens. I mean, how many weird tech devices do you see pop out born out of being copycats or just innovative new products from some weird companies at the time? It happens. And could TSopua have happened? Maybe, but with no actual record, no, it most likely did not happen. But if you were going to look at it on its own merits, and if you were just going to go by with the fact that, hey, maybe at one time TSopua could have existed, or hey, this company could have been there under a different name, you know, it could happen. You know, it could actually be something that is legit. And to be fair, if this was even a semblance of real, I guess anybody could say, is definitely an eerie thought. Now, of course, the whole idea of the CEO shooting their employees and then promptly dying in, well, very recent times should have kind of been some form of national news. I mean, somebody shooting their employees, creating a television set to drive people insane is a pretty far-fetched scenario. But ultimately, this creepypasta fails on that merit. But overall, you know, if you were going to look at it, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite, I'm going to look at it on its own merit, is actually pretty engaging. I did somewhat enjoy the uneasy feeling I received from this. Ultimately, in the end, I do ask you what you would rate this and what would you change for the better. And if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. This has been another episode of Creepypastas, part of Haunted Gaming on this channel. This is me, Mutahar, and I'm out.